Lily. That's a great start for today. Good morning, actually great morning. I am Debbie Skirto, representing the Board of Trustees, and I welcome everyone in the sanctuary and on Zoom. So we're glad to have everybody here today. This is the beginning of October already, and we want to first of all thank a group of people who are so awesome and so fit that they were able to do the Walk for the Hungry and Homeless, Inland Valley Hope, yesterday. So if you did that walk, stand up. Stand up. We've got Laura and Lynn Maria and Murray and George and Reverend Maggie. Yeah, and that's the team. And they walked throughout Claremont colleges, and I'm sure they made a nice fund to give to the Inland Valley Hope Partners to help everybody. So thank you guys. You're awesome. We appreciate you, and great job. Also, we have a very fun and delicious celebration today after the service. Paula Campbell has invited all of us to join her family for a catered lunch to celebrate her mother, Pat Paines, who has the tiara over here, and she's all pretty with her sash. Her 90th birthday, yay! That's great. So if, you know, Pat has been a longtime member of this congregation, but if you don't know her, haven't met her, or recently would like to hit up another association with her, please speak with her at the lunch, get to know her, say happy birthday. It's a good time to do that, and we appreciate you all, and thanks for being here and all the things you've done for this congregation. We have some other happenings this week. We have an executive board meeting. I know you're all excited to know about that. Me too. And the four of us will be meeting on Tuesday morning. And then we have on Tuesday night at 7 p.m., we have our Taco Tuesday, which is a casual time to get together and visit and discuss things. It's at 7 p.m. on Zoom, and there will be a link. There is a link in the Community Connections. If you don't receive the Community Connections and would like to, please see Jerry and Ellen back at the station back there, and they can sign you up. So you'll be getting all of the news every week. We also, let's see, Okay, so lastly, I want to call your attention to a very special email that went out to all current members Friday. And in that email, we sent all the list of proposals that we are suggesting for bylaws amendments. These are really important, folks, because this helps our team's structure get really moving, being able to work and keep everything going here at the church. Oh, and there's Janine. She was in the walk yesterday too. Hey, Janine. And so this was also the official notice, because we are asked to let you know at least 2 weeks ahead of the meeting on October 20th. It'll be right after church. We're not going to keep you all day. Promise, promise. And we have a few printed copies, and I'm not sure where they got located, but if you didn't read your email, you can talk to Laura Mulroy, you can talk to Catherine Rowley, you can talk to me, you can talk to Letha, ask questions about these proposals, and please be aware, because that's what we're going to vote on, and we need 50% of our members to be here. If you were a member in the past but did not sign one of these bright green things this year, you need this on file for the 2024-2025 fiscal year to be able to vote in this election. If you were a previous member, that means you took the class, you signed the book, etc., you can just sign up today if you haven't yet. Otherwise, if you're brand new or visiting, you have to have 30 days ahead to do anything. So for the rest of you, there's still quite a few people that we need to have update their pledge card so that they can vote. That is a criteria to be a member and to vote in this election. And mainly, that's basically what I have to say today, except welcome, have fun at the lunch. We're glad you're here. And I'm introducing our minister, Reverend Maggie Yenoki.
Good morning, everybody. Good to be here. It's an exciting day. We've got a lot going on, but I want to offer a warm welcome to those joining us on Zoom. And let's just celebrate a couple of things that are happening in the world. One is that those who were on the walk yesterday had a lot of fun. We did. And we raised about $500, right? Yeah, for Inland Valley. So that was great. Yeah. And we have a new moon in our skies. The Jewish holidays have started. And you'll notice these blue posters on the side windows. You can take a look at those and you can add your hand to it as well, because you are one that does the work. But we did that at the workshop, at the Sunday service that followed the workshop. We all traced our hand, and you'll see Sophie's over there. Because she does the work. She does, yeah. So here we are, our first Sunday in October, and while we see happy birthday everywhere, we want to sing that out. So let's sing for everyone that has an October birthday. Hands up. Pat, yeah, Janine. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear babies. Happy birthday to you. Wow. We open our service with the ringing of the bowl, honoring yesterday, grateful for our ancestors and our founders. Celebrating today and all who are gathered here. And co-creating tomorrow as we work to find a better, more just way together. Thank you so much. Beautiful. I've been waiting for fall to get here. Maybe it's still coming. I don't know. We still are. Yeah. Our time together in worship is woven into the gentlest parts of our daily lives. And as a symbol of that connection, we light our chalice with a flame that creates an image for the warmth and heart of this community, our spiritual home. As I invite Paula Campbell to light our chalice today in honor of her mom, let's hear these words inspired by Gretchen Haley. Every little thing that breaks your heart is welcome here. We make space for it. Bring every precious bit with you, all that you are. We promise no trying to force advice or magic fixes. There will be no making it all better, but instead we wholeheartedly offer the circle of trust, this human community that remembers, maybe imperfectly, that sings and prays, sometimes awkwardly. And we offer you belonging to this gathering that loves, even though we're still figuring out how. We're still practicing, after all, still learning, still in need of help and partners, and still becoming. But somehow, we still know that we're able to receive all of this beauty and all of the gifts that each of us brings to serve one another. And it is good to be here together. Paula has a couple things she wants to say. Please come to the mic so the Zoom folks can hear you. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. I only have a couple of things to say. First of all, I'm glad everybody's here to help my mom celebrate. And it feels strange to have the word trust emblazoned on the wall behind me, because I've never lied to my mother more in my life since I was 15 in order to get this party to happen. So thank you everybody for being complacent and being part of it.
Yeah. Maybe I should change the title, Trust When It's Convenient. That's cute. That's cute. Let's stand and sing our anthem for today, Spirit of Life, number 123, first verse in English and the second in Spanish. The words are on the screen. because our Unitarian Universalist faith is non-creedal, we do covenant with one another about how we will be in relationship. This is the covenant that we will share this morning. Please read it with me. We affirm that love is the greatest purpose of this congregation. The search for truth is our constant star, and service is our prayer. We pledge our hearts, minds, and hands to challenge injustice with courage, to make choices for a healthier planet, and to live out our Unitarian Universalist values every day as beloved community. Thus do we covenant with each other and with all that is sacred in life. Please be seated. Robert Tidwell, our Director of Religious Exploration, will be giving us our wisdom tale today. It's written by Sue Ferguson, and the title of it is Helpers, Teachers, and Angels.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
And a special thank you to the helper who helped make sure I pronounced the Japanese words in this story correctly. So, George, thank you. Helpers, Teachers, and Angels by Sue Ferguson. Trust is critical to the process on a spiritual path, but it doesn't come easily for some of us. I learned a little bit about it while I was living in Japan. Returning to Japan after a work trip to the States was often a stressful 24-hour ordeal, but on this trip I had missed my usual bus ride from Tokyo to my home and needed to take a train instead. It was almost midnight when I got to the very large train station in Shinjuku, just as the last train was about to leave. Navigating a foreign metro train station can be daunting at any time, but on this trip, my exhaustion must have given me a deer in the headlights look, because while I was gazing at the confusing train schedule on the screen, a man came up to me and asked, in perfect English, where I was going. When I told him that I needed the Odawara line, he immediately grabbed my rather large suitcase and began heading off into the depths of the station. Was this a good idea? I wondered. Can I trust him? In my exhaustion, I followed the stranger to the correct train, where he rushed forward without me. I've lost my suitcase for sure, I thought to myself, but I kept going and saw that he had rushed ahead so that he could save a seat for me and find a place for my suitcase on the very crowded last train of the night. With a slight bow to me, he backed off the train. That was the last I saw of him. His act of kindness and compassion left a lasting impression on me. To this day, I think of that stranger as a trusted angel who was moving me along on the exact path I needed to follow at a time when I probably could not do it for myself. Everything about this experience reminds me that if I am not cultivating an open heart and watching for the helpers, the teachers, and the angels, I may miss them when I need them most. May it always be that the Spirit of life moves us to keep our hearts open to receive the help that we are offered and motivate us to become the trusted angel that others may need. And now if the children present can come up and get our chalice, you guys can sing us to our class.
Have a great time. Make sure you watch the sermon on the video recording. Cute. Here at the Monte Vista Unitarian Universalist congregation, we've agreed to share 50% of the offerings that we gather that are not earmarked as pledges with a charity that aligns with our values and serves those in the Montclair area. Each recipient is pre-selected by the Justice team and then approved by the board. For the month of October, we share our plate to support the good work of NAMI's Inland Valley Empire. For any who are unfamiliar, NAMI is an acronym for National Alliance on Mental Illness, and Janine Little is here to share a bit about their work in our area. Janine?
All right, well, next week is Mental Health Awareness Week, and on October 10th, it's Mental Health Day for us to all celebrate. NAMI has been a traditional Share the Plate recipient with us. Our members who have passed on now, Harry Ragland and Nella Jarrett, really advocated for them. They helped them through many difficult times during their life. We do have the Inland Valley chapter, Inland Empire chapter, which kind of is the San Bernardino side, and then I see there's a Pomona Valley chapter that kind of takes care of that Los Angeles County side. But it's the National Alliance of Mental Health. It's a grassroots mental health organization dedicated to the building better lives for millions of Americans affected by mental illness. Their alliance includes more than 700 NAMI state organizations and affiliates who work in our community to raise awareness and provide support and education to those in need. They do have a helpline for anybody who needs that. I believe you could talk to them like Monday through Friday, but it's 24/7 for texts to get to them. They also provide a monthly podcast to educate. They publish research. They advocate for policy change. And then anybody who's been diagnosed with mental illness, 18 or over, they have support groups for them, as well as family members and caregivers. So a very good organization to support. Thank you.
Thanks, Janine. So at this time, I invite you to come forward with your generous offerings, given and received in a spirit of grateful fellowship. Beautiful. Our joys and our sorrows in our lives, our ups and downs, are best shared, some of them, and by our desire to share them with our congregation, we're building and strengthening the compassion that we have here and the celebration that we have here among us. I have one note from today. This comes from Jill Rigel, who's here in our choir. She says, I have a concern for my longtime friend from New York City. She's needing yet another back surgery. Please, prayer. Thank you, Jill. I have many from the world. They don't come on the little yellow sheets. They come on emails and news flashes and just thoughts that land. If you have any that you want me to mention to the congregation, I'm always receiving texts up to the minute. In fact, if we see any on the Zoom, Jaryus, if you could let me know. I don't have my Zoom screen open here. But there were recent flare-ups in the line fire that put our camp at risk again. But thankfully, it came within 3 miles of the camp. But the containment is being held steady, and our camp is still closed, but it's safe for now. So that is filled with both, right? And I invite all of us to join together in imagining, maybe as John Lennon wrote, that we can just imagine a world of peace around this time of our election. I'm already hearing and sensing a lot of really strong tension that's unhealthy for everyone. So let's just hold the election system in our thoughts and prayers. And tomorrow marks the 1-year anniversary of the attack by Hamas that began the escalated fighting in the Middle East. So tomorrow and today, and every day, we hold that area of our world in our prayer. And as we know, there are so many in Appalachia, the Tennessee Valley, that are suffering so greatly from the after effects of Hurricane Helene. That continues, and we hold them in our hearts as well. There is, I will finish with a joy, besides Pat's 90th birthday party. We'll finish with that joy. But yesterday on the walk, I was talking with Jack Little, and I said, oh, can I mention tomorrow in Joys and Concerns that you two are participating in the Long Beach Marathon? So that's where they are today. So Laura and Janine are here by themselves without their partners. But he goes, yeah, he goes, I'm not sure if it's going to be a joy or a concern, but yeah, you can tell everybody. So we hope they do well and that they have a really good time. It's really great. But we join in the tradition of many faiths as we engage prayer in our worship. We especially appreciate that there are as many ways to pray as there are stars in the sky. And one place that the prayers of the entire world meet is the understanding that prayer is energy and compassion that is released. When we focus our thoughts on any specific need that we feel compassion for, our minds see images and visions that we hope will manifest. Sometimes we're not sure how the best outcome might look, and we simply hold a situation in a deep well of concern and care. When we engage with a sense of deeply engaged emotion, the energy that we create extends through our whole body, and we become the creators of the simplest, most basic gifts of love, compassion, and healing. So let's never underestimate the power within prayers that are given and received, because they are pulses of hope, connecting with an even greater energy that surrounds us all and is always available to us. It is a power created by the simplest expressions of compassion. So to open ourselves to participating in today's time of prayer and meditation, I invite you to remain seated as we sing hymn number 16, just through once, and kind of slowly as a prayer. Tis a gift to be simple, and the lyrics should be on the screen. Apologies for not having those lyrics. Let's spend a couple moments now in some meditative shared silence. Please remain seated for our gentle song for today. It will be, it's titled Part of It. And we did sing it last week with the video, with the people that wrote it. And it's being used in a lot of our Unitarian Universalist congregations throughout the land. And we have the lyrics for it, and the choir will help us sing it. Lily's going to play it on piano. It's called Part of It. That sounded great. Thanks, everyone. Beautiful. Beautiful. Come on up. We have a treat today. Jack Weidner will be sharing his story with us about his experience on the border as a student at Pomona College. Jack?
Hello, can everyone hear me? Yes, okay. So I think I know most of you, but for those who don't, I'm Jack Weidner. I come here regularly and I'm a student at Pomona College. So as many of you know, last semester I lived in Tucson and I did a border studies program about the US-Mexico border. It was an experiential learning semester, not a humanitarian aid trip. But as I'll talk about, the two are closely related. I was very fortunate to learn from some incredible people, and I'm excited to share a bit of what I learned with you all. The theme of today's service is trust. Trust is a necessary ingredient for pretty much any action, but it's easy to misplace your trust. It's especially easy when you feel threatened. It can be easier to trust the safety of a wall than to trust the safety of other people. It can be easier to trust people who feel like you than it can be to trust people who feel different. But what I learned from border studies is that any division maintained by force is artificial. If you have to put effort into maintaining a barrier, it's not naturally occurring. Imagine standing on a hill in Organ Pipe Cactus National Monument. All around you, rocky red foothills rise out of the ground covered with green. They are home to saguaro and cholla cacti, creosote and ocotillo, palo verde and mesquite, roadrunners and javelinas, and more. In other words, the Sonoran Desert stretches in every direction, and despite the dryness, it's full of life. There is nothing about this landscape that signals division. For the Tohono O'odham, current and ancestral residents of the land stretching all the way from present-day Phoenix, Arizona, to Puerto Peñasco, Sonora, as well as for the animals, there never was any division. But today, a thin, 30-foot-high steel bollard wall attempts to carve a clean path. It separates north from south, the United States of America from the United Mexican States, and family from family. The border seems like a common sense, clear-cut line, but it's actually maintained by a tremendous amount of force. It's literally maintained by military-grade weapons and surveillance towers that rival the Eye of Sauron. It's maintained by a constant stream of funding incited by powerful scare tactics in the media. It's maintained in less visible, bureaucratic ways too, like the denial of asylum applications. This is extremely common, and it occurs today even for cases that obviously qualify for asylum based on international law. In the 1980s, the US government took this practice to the extreme. Almost 1 million Central Americans crossed the southern border between 1980 and 1991, fleeing deadly civil wars and political violence in Guatemala, El Salvador, and Nicaragua. At the time, the US was providing financial and military aid to the Salvadoran and Guatemalan governments in violation of a US law that outlawed giving aid to countries committing human rights abuses. To admit asylum seekers from those countries would stop that flow of aid to the US's sinister programs. So the government simply categorically rejected asylum applications from hundreds of thousands of Salvadorian, Guatemalan, and Nicaraguan nationals. When people living on either side of the border began to understand this situation, some of them took action. At a crucial turning point, a rancher named Jim Corbett approached then-pastor John Fife of Tucson's Southside Presbyterian Church and said, "We need to do something." The amount of migrants crossing through his land had been increasing exponentially, and he and his wife weren't able to provide food and shelter for everyone. He had the foresight to understand that this situation wouldn't get better by itself. I had the privilege of meeting Pastor Fife himself, and he told us how that moment sparked a movement. They got together a group of dedicated people, established relationships with migrant shelters in Mexico and other congregations in the US, and began a full-scale operation of smuggling people across the border. In one particularly powerful moment, Pastor Fife recalled sitting down with a map of the Underground Railroad and figuring out how to move people along those same routes 120 years later. This was the beginning of the sanctuary movement. The sanctuary movement derived its name from the ancient Jewish and Christian idea of the right to sanctuary. Over the course of its life, the sanctuary movement helped move more than 13,000 Central Americans to safety, relieving them from almost certain death. Of course, the people who did this were breaking the law. They knew what they were doing was morally right, but how did they justify it to the law? In the end, 16 clergy and lay leaders in Tucson were indicted. 8 of them were convicted, but nobody served any time. What did they argue? That rancher Jim Corbett came up with the concept of civil initiative. We are more familiar with his well-known cousin, civil disobedience, which is the act of intentionally breaking a law in order to call attention to its injustice. Civil initiative is when citizens of a particular nation take up the work of enforcing national and international laws that their government is refusing to enforce. In this case, the US government was breaking international and domestic law by categorically denying asylum to Central Americans. When a dedicated group of civilians saw their government refusing to comply with international and domestic law, they stepped in and did the job themselves, and then successfully argued their case in a court of law. While the sanctuary movement was effective at changing public perception and migration-related policy, that policy took a different turn after the 1980s. For the past few decades, successive administrations have pursued a strategy called prevention through deterrence, which tries to stop migration by making it harder and harder to immigrate. The infamous family separation policy was a part of this. A lesser known but even deadlier arm of this strategy is to push migrants away from safe ports of entry in the cities and into remote stretches of the desert. Today, No Más Muertes, or No More Deaths, continues the tradition of civil initiative by providing material aid and search and rescue missions to these desert travelers. So, what can we learn from the civil initiative of the sanctuary movement? The most important lesson is simply that we are capable of doing things. We are capable of doing things that we think we can't. Religious and values-based communities can be great cooking pots for this kind of action, but it doesn't happen automatically just by proclaiming our values. It requires dedication, commitment, and an incredible amount of trust in each other. The second lesson we can learn from the sanctuary movement is that a great way to build trust is by building something with other people. What the members of the sanctuary movement found was that their trust was better placed in their own moral compass, their faith communities, and the strangers who they welcomed at their door than it was placed in abstract concepts of justice through the law. What we can learn from the movement is that, while it is easy to misplace our trust by believing that a wall will make us safe, or that our government will always do the right thing, or that a stranger is probably dangerous, it is always possible to find our way back to our own sense of moral rightness and to communities that we can really trust. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
No, thank you. Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Ah, that was church. I've been noticing a shift in our language over recent months that had me wondering and has me concerned. Maybe it's something that you've been noticing too, or perhaps your attention will perk up a bit after our time together today. But when you hear and feel the effects of our current usage of two very meaningful and important words, the first word is trust, and we'll return to that in just a moment. But before we do, I invite you to join me in an inquiry about the manipulation and fear that's attached to another popular word these days, unprecedented. Yeah, it's exhausting, huh? It's a word that we've heard and perhaps even used over the past few years to describe our perception of our shifting lives. And I know that I've used it in more recent times. And I try to define our shared experience in a way that rings true to most of us. I like to use unprecedented as an adjective that highlights the tender times and, more importantly, gives us permission to acknowledge the increased tension that we sense in our lives and in the lives of those that we care deeply about. But let's be alert to the ways that this word can activate fear. There's a very distinct threshold between our agreement that these times are not at all what we imagined they would be. And we're in a free fall, and we have no idea what's going to happen. Carmen Lindsay, who writes on critical issues for an online newspaper that's published by the Office of Hawaiian Affairs in Maui, she wrote, "Something about the word unprecedented in the context it's been used in the media world feels scary. Like nobody knows what to do and we're blindly trying to walk through a dark and unfamiliar place. But when it comes right down to it, no experience that we ever go through is fully unprecedented." I hear Lindsay's frustration with the misuse of that word, and I will be more perceptive in my use of it because of her teaching. But she goes on in her article to honor the lives of her ancestors and ours that have endured so much that was to them never, ever expected. And so may we too pause when we can and acknowledge that the depth of suffering that our ancestors endured through times of similar or worse circumstances are in our bones. Their experience is in our DNA, strengthening those bones for these times that we are in and we are called to step up in. We rely on their supportive teachings as we dig in to finding our way towards brighter light and deeper compassion in these times of suffering. And while the lived experiences of those who came before us still hold us and shape us, I saw a meme, that's where I get my truth sometimes, a meme on Facebook. It says, "Your grandmother's prayers are still helping you." How beautiful is that? But we can reach within ourselves and seek their guidance, holding on to the trust that we have in those who taught us and in the trust that they now extend to us, so that we, as the Hebrew scriptures affirm, can do justly and love mercy and walk humbly. We trust in the guidance of spirit that insists that we need honesty and humility and a willingness to walk through this fire. We are surely in times of fire now in many ways. Knowing that, we hold continued compassion for those who are in the confrontation with that element of fire, where it's all too real. I think of Jack and Janine, I think of everybody up at camp. It's real. But it is trust that seems to be taking the brunt of the damage in the tsunami of change that we are up to our eyeballs in. So many of the things that we may have leaned on pretty heavily in the past are proving to be less durable, shall we say. But could it be that they were never very sound? And could it be that we became too reliant on them to a fault? And might there be a better way that has yet remained unexplored? It sure is disconcerting to sense how our coping mechanisms are reeling in our natural sense of trust, though. We hesitate now to trust strangers in any way, especially with our kids. We wonder what that's teaching them, but it's important. But we know that lies and manipulation sound like kindness sometimes, and even a smile could be masking an attack. We know that from the recent scammers who used my identity for their own gain. Yes, I am still angry about that. Trust is a precious gift of the soul, but it's one that we don't extend freely anymore, but not by choice always, but because of wisdom and the lessons of painful experience. And that's simply a really heartbreaking sign of these times. But what can we do about that? Should we just shrug and write off any optimism for our future? Or do we embrace a fear of trust and curl inward and go underground? That doesn't sound very Unitarian, Universalist now, does it? So we'll be talking more about this in the weeks ahead. And I invite you to share your thoughts on the ways that we can restore the trust that has waned so much. One small way I'd like to ask you to take action is to build back trust, is to make a bullet list for yourself, however you choose to do that, on your phone, maybe on your bathroom mirror, or on your refrigerator, and list the things that you trust in as they come to mind. The first few things that you write can be things that you're even on a threshold about, because maybe the things you trust just a wee bit, or something very private. And there's no pressure to be verbose or wordy or flashy. Mine might start out with, I trust that Sophie will always be happy to see me. But even those little ones, that's how we start to build back the foundation of strengthening the trust we have for who we are and where we're going. One way we could do this is to send texts or emails back and forth, sharing what we're doing to build back trust, and open a positive conversation that will help us to focus on something that feels good, something to hold on to as our world continues through these times of change, something that proves to our sore hearts that we are trusting and trustworthy once again. Blessed be. I invite you to join in our sending song. It's going to be fun. It's one of Pat Payne's favorites. We checked with her to see what closing song would we like. So it's number 311, Let It Be a Dance. So I invite you to stand and join in singing that out. let's read aloud together our unison benediction. The words are on the screen. As we extinguish our chalice flame, we take its light in our hearts to build trust in the creative powers of the Spirit of life. With hope for all life in this world, we hold hope at the center, and we go forward together in peace, becoming makers of peace as we go. Let's enjoy the postlude. Everyone is invited to stay for today's birthday luncheon as we celebrate Pat's 90th birthday. But when the party is all put away and we go out into our very full lives, may we offer comfort to those who are struggling. May we share love with those who are lonely. And may we hold close our wish for all to be safe. Let's party.